Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Andrew Lopez with the Canadian County Conservatives, and I am here with Representative Jay Steagall for House District 43. Welcome, Mr. Steagall. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, we
Excited to be here.
definitely appreciate you being here. Could you tell the public there what area this encompasses for your House District?
Sure. So House District 43 basically covers the southern half of the city of Yukon and some of Oklahoma City. So Route 66 down to Southwest 29th, and the western side is over on Garth Brooks and extends east over to basically Sarah Road.
Okay, so the Christmas lights are over there.
The Christmas lights are there. Come see the Christmas lights. We've got the best Christmas lights set up.
Get in line for 3 hours for that, all right?
It's worth it, though. Come on in.
Today, we're going to be covering this lawsuit that the Oklahoma Attorney General has filed against the federal government and President Biden and all that entails. But before we get into that, I wanted to make sure that people know more about you. You got 22 years of military service. You got the Oklahoma Army National Guard. You got the Oklahoma Air National Guard. You got the Air National, the Air Reserve. Yeah, right. Making sure my notes are right here. So you retired at rank and major, and you are a senior KC-135 pilot. So tell everyone what that means.
It means I fly airplanes that used to pass gas.
So
and
you're
refuel other
fueling.
airplanes, yeah. So we conducted air refueling.
Okay.
Did 9 deployments in the tanker.
Wow.
Of course, everybody's probably seen the tankers fly in and out of Tinker Air Force Base, along with the AWACS.
Okay.
But I flew the tanker. Enjoyed that. 9 deployments, 7 of which were in the Oklahoma Air National Guard, and 2 deployments with the Air Force Reserve.
Okay.
I did a little over 120 combat missions, totaling a little over 2,000 total flying hours in the KC-135.
Okay,
So I'm glad we're bringing this up,
Yeah.
because this topic really deals with our National Guard unit, and who's in control of our National Guard unit. Is it the feds? Is it the states? How are they funded? And how is this chain of command devised within this entire structure? And it's a very, very interesting topic to cover, and one that took a few months for us to get all our ducks in a row in order to finally file this lawsuit and request this temporary restraining order, as TRO. And I'm looking forward to discussing this in more detail as we go along.
Good. Let's start with the Oklahoma Guard commander. He said that he's not going to enforce the mandate on the guardsmen. Is that correct?
So what our adjutant general has stated, Thomas Mancino. He's a great patriot. Federal constitutionalist and one fine officer, if I might add there. His job is to take direction from our state's governor, Governor Stitt.
Okay.
So Governor Stitt started months and months and months ago by making the assertion that we were not going to have any vaccine mandates in the state of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So when the Secretary of Defense put this order out back on August 24th that asserted that all members of the DOD were going to have to take this vaccine, including our National Guardsmen, then it immediately sends a flag up, right? And you've got to start asking questions. Does the Secretary of Defense actually have administrative control over our Title 32, what we call our Title 32 members, our National Guardsmen, while they're at home station? And the answer to that's going to be found out in this lawsuit, right? But the Constitution actually provides the answer for us. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit as well.
Okay.
But what General Mancino has stated is that he has taken direction from the governor himself, and the governor's intent is to ensure that there's no retributions for our guardsmen who declined to take this vaccine by the arbitrary date of December 2nd. Now that date applied to our Air Guard members. That affects 2 bases, one here at Oklahoma City at the Will Rogers Air National Guard Base, and the other's in Tulsa. That's our F-16 units up there in Tulsa. So the 2 Air Guard units coincidentally had the same deadline to receive the vaccination and be fully vaccinated by December 2nd. Our Army Guard folks here in the state have a different date, and it's not for another 6 months. It's in June.
Yeah, because there's an emergency.
Obviously.
There's an emergency, guys.
This emergency is so vital that
we're taking care of it 6 months later for a different group of people.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So the Secretary of Defense's argument can be found in his letter that was dated 24 August of this year. And I'd like to read something very peculiar in this memorandum. Of course, this went out to all the secretaries of the different services, but the most intriguing paragraph is near the bottom of the first page, and it says this: mandatory vaccination against COVID-19 will use only COVID-19 vaccines that receive full licensure from the FDA.
Okay.
So far, to date, the only vaccines that are available to anyone in this country are still under EUA provisions.
Mm-hmm.
What are EUA provisions? Emergency Use Authorization vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
So the mandate itself really can't be met by any of our DoD members, any of our federal contractors, nor if we were to take a look at the OSHA rules or the CMS rules or the rules that apply to federal contractors, they couldn't meet a similar mandate either if we're looking at the language that says this mandate will only use vaccines that receive full licensure from the FDA.
So do you think that they just got ahead of themselves, or I remember you were telling me before the interview that there's something else called Comirnaty that is supposedly approved, but no one can get it. Like, what? Why would they write this knowing that there is no vaccine that they can obtain that has approval that they can enforce this mandate with? Why would that be?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I think if we were to rewind the clock and take a look at everything that happened in August, we'll remember that President Biden stood behind the podium and informed the American people. He said, if you're a business owner and you've been waiting for a fully licensed FDA COVID vaccine to mandate to your employees, you now have it. And what he was referring to was the language that the FDA published to their website that stated that this Comirnaty had some licensure within the FDA.
Okay.
Now, in that same document, the FDA says that this Comirnaty product and the Pfizer BioNTech or BioNTech, however you want to pronounce it, were interchangeable. And it goes on to say that these two products are legally distinct.
Okay.
Later on in the document, it explains that the BioNTech product is still under the EUA, and to date, it is still under EUA, as well as the Johnson & Johnson, the Moderna, all three of them are still under EUA provisions. No one in this country has taken the Comirnaty shot because it's not available. It hasn't even been produced, and it's not accessible by the public.
And so let me make sure I follow you. That document that you're referring to was saying that the BioNTech and Comirnaty are interchangeable as far as use, or is that what you were saying?
I'm saying the FDA wrote some language in there that was very ambiguous. Okay. And back to the original question, because the language was not as straightforward as it needed to be, then we have friends within the DoD in all branches, including all the way up to the SecDef and evidently all the way up to the President's administration, that use that ambiguous language to kind of manipulate the public into believing that the BioNTech product itself from Pfizer is the same, and that approval, that full licensure for Comirnaty was also an approval for the BioNTech or BioNTech product, and that is not the case. Matter of fact, what we found out back on November 12th, there was a U.S. federal district judge down in Florida that denied the DoD's claim that these two products are interchangeable. Really denying the claim that they were interchangeable in the way that the military was trying to assert that they were interchangeable. The military's take on this was, well, Comirnaty is a Pfizer product and it got full licensure. So the BioNTech, also made by Pfizer, since the language in the on the FDA's website said they're interchangeable, then this one must be fully licensed as well. So if we go back and take a look at the let's see if I can find this right quick. The Secretary of Defense's letter. Remember, it said the vaccination against COVID, the mandate itself against COVID vaccine will use only that COVID-19 vaccine that has received full licensure. What he did not do was mandate the vaccines that are still under EUA. Why? Because he can't. Federal law prohibits him from doing it.
It's experimental.
It is experimental by definition. And let's fast forward now back to a later time, November 12th. The same judge in the same case goes on to say, not only does he dismiss the claim that these two vaccines are interchangeable, he goes on to say the DoD cannot mandate vaccines that have an only EUA provision. So this takes all of the wind out of the SecDef's sail, because there is no product available for any of our members to take. Now, you and I are sitting here talking about the Secretary of Defense's letter as if it has some validity to our National Guard members.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. I see Moto loves where this is going.
Yeah, I think there's a point to this, yeah.
He's like, oh, I like where this is going. But before we talk about that, I want to tell you what my role in the House is.
Go for it.
So I serve as the chairman of the States' Rights Committee.
Okay.
We are renaming that to the State Powers Committee starting this next year. The states' rights connotation is more of a defensive posture, whereas the State Powers Committee name itself is more of more of us taking the offense,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's right or more correct use of the words that we find in our constitutional provisions as well.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer that states themselves don't have rights the same as individuals do. States have powers that are delegated
to them,
by the people that they work for.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also serve as the House Chair of the Veterans Caucus. 3 years ago, I was elected by my fellow veterans in both the House and the Senate to serve as the House Chair for that caucus. And one of the committees that I serve on is obviously the Veteran and Military Affairs Committee there in the House. So there's what I do in the House. Let's talk about this chain of command.
Yeah.
Does the Secretary of Defense have administrative control of our Title 32 members, our National Guardsmen, as we know them to be here at home station? Well, we got to remember that the Secretary of Defense works for the President. So there's this implication there that's the chain of command that is being worked. Now, in the Secretary of Defense's letter, he alludes to that fact as well in his opening statement. He's putting this out with the support of the President. Well, obviously, that's where he's taking his marching orders.
Right, yeah.
And should, right? That's who he works for.
Right.
Well, our Title 32 members are not in the President's chain of command. They're in the Governor's chain of command. These are two separate and mutually exclusive chains of command. And there's only one instance, and it's so rare we're not even going to talk about it, where a certain member may be able to be under both chains of command at the same time.
Yeah.
But for general purposes, you're either in, as a Title 32 member, you are in the
because you joined the Oklahoma National, or obviously the Oklahoma Guard, and that's what you joined.
Army or Air, right?
Yeah. And so you're not a federal military person.
That's right. Yeah. We're referred to as the non-federalized component of the DoD.
Definitions,
right?
Words.
Yeah, words mean something. I
Yeah.
know. It's neat how all this shakes out.
Yeah.
But let's go to Article 2, Section 2, where we talk about what controls the President does have.
Okay.
So in Article 2, Section 2, the President does become the commander-in-chief over the militias of the several states when they are called into the actual service of the United States.
For international war.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're going to go outside the borders of the country and you're going to go fight a war. Well, that makes sense. I'm not leaving as a member of the Oklahoma Air National Guard or Oklahoma Army National Guard.
Yeah.
I'd be leaving as a soldier or airman serving my country at that point, and I'd be flying under the flag of the United States. It makes sense that since the President's the one that declared that war.
Well, and you need one commander for everything to make everything work. It makes sense.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I deployed as a National Guard member, I was on what we call Title 10 deployment orders.
Okay.
Those were presidential Title 10 orders. Now you'll hear this Title 32 versus Title 10 status that these National Guardsmen can be under.
Yeah.
But it's important to note that there are several different types of Title 10 orders that a National Guard member could be operating under.
Okay.
Not every set of Title 10 orders necessarily puts a member of the National Guard in the chain of command of the President.
Okay.
Such as formal training Title 10 orders.
Okay.
Those formal training Title 10 orders still have that member listed, at least administratively, under the purview of the chain of command of the Governor.
And so that's the basic training stuff? Is that what you mean, or what does that mean?
It could be basic training. Yeah, basic training is a formal training for our military members. It could be pilot training, navigator training, all these training orders that I've been on.
Okay. My
chain of command was still through the National Guard Bureau, even though I was on a set of Title 10 orders.
Yeah, I guess technically if you look at you're employing the federal government to train these people because the federal government is effective at doing it, but not necessarily they're not controlling those members, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you bring that up because I would like to go back to
Okay.
Article 1, Section 8,
Let's do it.
Clause 15 and 16.
All right.
So when we take a look at these clauses, what we find is Congress's role in all of this. The provisions that the president has as far as the chain of command goes over our National Guard members is only that one little sentence. So that's a head nod towards the fact that our National Guard members are actually under the control, under the chain of command of their respective governors all other times.
Yeah.
There's only...
just like any powers not named here in the Constitution are reserved by the states.
That's exactly right.
The same thing.
So we find that in the 10th Amendment, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So 10th Amendment provisions still apply here. Powers not delegated to the United States. Okay. So we didn't delegate administrative control of our National Guard members to the president except under one instance.
One time.
When they deploy. Yep. That's it. So other than that, their governor is their commander-in-chief.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so when we go to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16, we find Congress's role in all of this.
Okay.
Clause 15 gives them the duty to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union. What are the laws of the Union? The Constitution. So when every member enlists or gets a commission in the armed forces, they are taking an oath to uphold and defend
the Constitution
of the United States.
Right.
Why? Because it's the supreme law of the land.
Okay.
So Article 16 delegates the duty to Congress to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. So here's the funding mechanism.
Okay.
How do we fund our National Guard units? Okay. Well, the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act that we pass every so often, becomes law when Congress passes that out of both chambers and the president signs it. Included in that NDAA are the monetary provisions to pay our National Guard members. Right. So there's their training money. There's their UTA drill weekend money. Their annual training monies. All these different monies that are delegated. So Congress tells through law the DOD to write checks to every state to provide for the organizing, arming, and disciplining of those state militias. But it's still up to the states. That provision goes on to say that the states are reserved, respectively, the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Yeah. So the states have a much larger role in the administrative control of these militia
They get
members.
the money and they make it happen.
Right. And why does that make sense? Well, because we've given some authority, if you will, to the president to call them up into the actual service of...
So he's making sure that they're ready if at any time.
Congress is making sure they're ready.
I'm sorry, yeah. So we have Congress ensuring that we have a well-regulated militia.
That's right.
In each of the states, right?
That's right. I'm glad you bring up the Second Amendment, too, because if there was ever a debate in favor of the Second Amendment, it's going to be this one. I mean, it has nothing to do with firearms, coincidentally. But it does have everything to do with our state militia. So let's go back to the Second Amendment.
Let's do it.
All right, I love this. A well-regulated militia. See, there's plenty of provisions within our Constitution to give us the guidelines to operate under.
That's covered too.
That's covered. Believe it or not, it's crazy.
It's all connected.
It is.
It's easy to understand too.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
So there's a semicolon before that first part, right? Right. Now,
let me pencil that in right quick. And regulated means that we can pass all kinds of laws to regulate what that means. No, it's not what that means. And I'm glad we're talking about that too. What did well-regulated mean at the time of writing? It meant well-trained, well-equipped, and well-organized. That's what well-regulated meant. It did not mean that we could restrict somebody's access to firearms or anything else to that provision.
Right.
So a well-trained, a well-organized, a well-equipped militia, state militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. So if we think about this now, the president only has administrative control over National Guard members when they're called up into the actual service of the United States for deployment purposes, obviously. Then every other time that this National Guard member is serving, they're under the chain of command of their respective governor.
Yeah.
So the governor has at his disposal now, according to the Second Amendment, a military check against the federal powers that may infringe on the individual liberties of that particular state.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know how we put that any plainer.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
very, very straightforward.
Exactly, because if each state has their own militia, then if the government does something crazy like mandate certain health decisions be made on behalf of the people by the federal government, experimental health decisions, right? Then the states have the ability to stop the federal government at the border and say, "Not here, Joker," right?
That's right. And not only do they have the ability to do that, they have the duty to do that.
Yeah.
Because if we go into Article 4, Section 4,
Yeah.
what we find is something that Mark and I are going to talk about here in a little bit, is the each state's duty to provide for a Republican form of government that is guaranteed in our Constitution,
Right.
not just in the agreement that we have between the states, but in the agreement that each state has with the individuals that live there.
Right. Yeah. That's what each state is bound to their citizens to do.
That's right.
Is to ensure that this Republican form of government that defends the citizens' rights and maintains their liberty.
That's right.
So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about these constitutional issues in regards to this lawsuit that our Attorney General has filed. And so we'll be on the other side with Mark Thomas joining us at the table. Stay tuned.
I'm Frank Urbanik, and I'm running for mayor to keep Oklahoma City open. I'm a 22-year military vet. I just returned from my 4th combat deployment to the Middle East. I fly in AWACS in the Air Force Reserve Squadron here at Tinker. I've worked in the grassroots here in Oklahoma for quite some time. I've been a member of the Oklahoma GOP Executive Committee, and I have been a precinct and district chair. I'm also an attorney, and I've used my law degree to advance conservative causes in our community. Last year, when Mayor David Holt illegally shut businesses down, we took him to court. He was using something called the Riot Control and Prevention Act to threaten workers with 6 months of jail. And soon after we filed that lawsuit, Holt backed down, and we were able to remove the threat of arrest from countless workers in Oklahoma City.
Hey guys, welcome back. We got another member here at the table, Mark Thomas. He's a popular figure there in Canadian Canada, at least in my books. I like having him around.
We thought you had good judgment right up until you said that. Now we have to rethink.
Well, we all have regrets in life. So.
Yeah.
But that's not one of them for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the history of how we got here. It's recent history, but it's pretty deep, right? So, Jay, if you want to take it from there, and we can continue talking about what's going on with this lawsuit, how everything's related, the constitutional issues, just get us into the thick of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how we got where we're at as pertains to this lawsuit against the president on behalf of our National Guard members and other federal employees began back on September 11th with a discussion that I had with our governor.
Okay.
After I got a phone call from a good friend of mine that has a relative in our Air National Guard here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So the threat got put out that if members didn't receive full vaccination by December 2nd, that they would be looking at something other than an honorable discharge out of our military. Of course,
yeah, okay.
That didn't sit well with me, nor did it sit well
No.
with any of our National Guard members. So my phone starts blowing up.
Okay.
Thankfully, people that know me started calling and saying, "Hey, is this true? Is there any validity to this? This is what SecDef put out in its memo, and this is the way this is going to roll out according to our commanders. But we don't feel like this is right."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "You know what? It's not right. Let me take a look at this."
Okay.
But Andrew, what we're talking about here are a group of members in our society that raised their hand, took the oath to support and defend the Constitution, put their lives on the line if necessary to go defend our way of life.
Right.
even outside the borders of this country,
Mm-hmm.
and they're being told that if they don't take a shot for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, none of these religious accommodations to date have been approved, and there's no indication that they will be.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
That if these members aren't fully vaccinated against a virus that has a 99.9% survival rate,
Yeah, and the latest variant, it's like you got a sniffle and you get back to work, right?
right. that these members are going to be discharged from the service that they volunteered to serve in.
Mm-hmm.
So I dug into this, got the governor involved on September 11th in this discussion. Just 3 days later, I'm having a meeting with the Attorney General to get the wheels rolling there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in November 5th and 6th,
Mm-hmm.
the governor and I had extensive meetings
Okay.
about what the next plan of action was going to be in that next week.
Yeah.
We saw that our adjutant general was replaced, a new order was issued,
Mm-hmm.
and a new direction provided to all
Mm-hmm.
of our National Guard members
Mm-hmm.
As it pertained to the COVID-19
Wonder
vaccine.
how that came about.
Yeah, and amen.
Yeah.
Well, like General Mancino alluded to in his memo, his job is to follow the orders of the governor.
Right. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure what kind of relationship our previous
Yeah.
tag had with
Yeah.
the governor. It's not really important. What is important right now, though, is that the order was issued that there was going to be no retribution for our Guard members that didn't meet this December 2nd arbitrary
Right.
deadline.
Right.
And so far, the governor has stuck to his guns on that. So thank you, Governor Stitt,
Yep.
for
Thank you.
for defending your guardsmen and your state as a result of that.
Yeah. Good job.
Absolutely.
And he deserves kudos on that. Attorney General O'Connor
Mm-hmm.
did two things for us last week. He filed a lawsuit on behalf of
Yep.
not just our National Guard members, but for federal employees as well. And then on Friday, he filed for a temporary restraining order
Mm-hmm.
that's essentially just going to put things on pause
Yeah.
if awarded for the time being.
Okay.
So why is this a big thing? Well, during this entire timeline of events between September and November, the governor asked the Secretary of Defense for an exemption from this mandate. When he got no response, then he responded with putting his foot down and saying,
Yeah.
we're not doing this in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
We work here, and the writing was on the wall.
Okay.
We were looking at losing anywhere really between initially 15 to 25% of our Guard members out of just the Air Guard units themselves. Between the numbers that I'd received in my office.
So what if
people that
any
were
company
doing it
lost
for
15 to 25% of their people? What would happen?
Andrew, that's a really good question. But I think
Yeah.
we really have to drill down into it a little bit further than just taking a look at that
Yeah.
number by itself.
Yeah, go ahead.
The question that we have to ask is, well, what part of that unit are we going to be losing members
No,
from?
that's even the
Right?
better question.
I mean,
Yeah.
both of these
Yeah.
Air Guard units have
Yeah.
air assets.
Specially
So-
trained people.
That's right. So
Yeah.
if we start losing pilots, if we start losing sensor operators, or whoever else it is that makes up the troop complements in Oklahoma City, or our pilot corps out of Tulsa, or our mechanics out of Tulsa,
Yeah.
if you can't turn wrenches, you can't get airplanes in the air.
Yeah.
If you can't fly airplanes, you can't get airplanes in the air. So if we were to take a look at the inability to get these aircraft off the ground, then that's more significant in itself than just saying, well, we're looking at losing a lot of people out of
Yeah.
our Air Guard units.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember seeing that part there in the restraining order in the lawsuit, and you say, oh, we're gonna have all these people that can't serve anymore because they're getting kicked out. But
That's right.
that's even more important.
That's right.
Yeah.
Once we drill down
Yeah.
into the details
Yeah.
of where those cuts would be made,
Yeah.
it's more detrimental to the
Yeah.
actual readiness of these units
Where
than the lack of
it-
taking the vaccine.
Yeah, it
would
deals with the safety of the state, as these documents are talking
yeah,
about.
our military
exactly.
readiness of
Yeah.
the state.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting perspective on this now. If we were to
Mhm.
take a look at the DoD's argument, which is everyone needs to take this shot for mission readiness purposes. Well, at the time that the letter that came from SecDef was issued,
Mm-hmm.
we had lost 60, not downplaying the fact that we lost some members to COVID,
Okay.
but we lost 60 DoD members out of the 2.15 plus million DoD members that we have.
Okay. So let's say that again.
Okay.
60
Out of
people out
60 people out of the 2.15 plus million DOD members.
Died of COVID.
60.
Documented. Died of COVID. Okay.
All right.
All right. All right. Okay.
And I don't want to downplay the fact that
No, those
there
are
were 60
those are families.
60 families
you know,
out there that lost
right.
loved ones to this virus.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to argue that this is a readiness issue when you have 15 to 25% of your forces that are willing to walk away
Right.
because they don't want to take the shot.
Right.
So which has
What's more harmful?
a bigger
Yeah.
impact on mission readiness?
Yeah.
And can I interject something?
Go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
We're talking about losing 60 military members through the course of this so-called pandemic.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And since the time which we have been vaccinating people now, the numbers I have seen are 80 individuals that are now retired because of heart conditions of myocarditis and pericarditis through the military. So in effect, the vaccines have been more harmful
Yeah.
in terms of loss of personnel
Yeah.
than the virus ever has been. So you have to question exactly what is the motivation of the Secretary of Defense that has this information. I've got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not on the inside.
And he's got more information than you do. Yeah.
Well, and I hate to say that, but the reality is you have to question it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to question the rationale. What is the motivation behind this?
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
And which has a bigger effect on mission readiness.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if, I went through pilot training.
Yep.
From experience, it's going to take roughly 3 years
Okay. Yeah.
from the time a pilot candidate is hired within a unit
Yeah.
and put through all the training required to get their butt back in the seat at their home station. Now, that's for a basic pilot. It's going to take several more years to get an instructor pilot
Yeah.
position
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
that person because it's additional training,
Yep.
additional experience, and then there's evaluator pilots that take even longer to train. We're talking about years and years and years and years of training and experience that you're not going to get out of a basic member simply for letting an experienced
You're right.
member
Yeah.
go.
You just can't accelerate time like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't hire these people in off the street.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that fast.
So would a sinister thought be that there's somebody trying to weaken the states?
Well, whether it's intentional or not, the outcome is going to be the same, right?
That comes the same.
So in this discussion, you have these guardsmen. They're refusing to take the vaccine, and we have all these constitutional issues in there. Well, I guess a person could look at it in a way that they're actually doing their duty in standing against this and not succumbing to it.
You bring up another really interesting question. Kudos to you. Brownie points for you for bringing up all these awesome questions.
I love talking about this stuff.
So in the military, we have this thing called a religious accommodation.
Yeah.
Okay, so a member can reject taking vaccines. The thought or the premise that just because a member's in the military, they have to take these vaccines,
Okay.
and that's not necessarily
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that was kind of what I've received from that. Yeah.
So there's a process to receive a religious accommodation.
Okay.
Now, interestingly enough, when a member requests one of these religious accommodations, they fill out the paperwork, get sent up the chain of command, and they are considered by regulation exempt from that vaccine mandate until that accommodation is either approved or denied.
Okay.
Now, a lot of our members have asked for religious accommodations.
No.
As I said earlier, to date, I'm not aware of any religious accommodations being awarded. And the language that I've received from several members, not just from here in Oklahoma, but from other states as well, is that they're being told that none of these religious accommodations are going to be awarded, which is a violation of this member's First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
And as our AG alludes to in his TRO request, the thing that's being left out of this language that's come from the Secretary of Defense is an allowance, the continued allowance for these religious accommodations. Now, under the DOD rules, when it comes to these religious accommodations, the member is considered to be exempt until it's either approved or denied.
Right.
According to Air Force instruction,
Right.
that member is not to be pulled from training.
Yeah.
That accommodation is not to be used for any kind of reprisal. So they're
Mhm.
not to be denied any kind of promotion.
Yeah. Things
or
go
pay
on.
increase. That's right. It's
Yeah.
business as normal,
Yeah.
and it is on the DOD, not
Yeah.
the member,
Yeah.
to prove that the military cannot accommodate
Hmm.
that request.
Right. And how could they not? It's just a shot.
How can they not? So
Yeah.
court case after court case, and the AG alludes to this in the TRO and the
Mm-hmm.
lawsuit as well, that these accommodations should be met anyway,
Right.
Because a member's faith is not what's supposed to be tested here.
Right.
How could any entity
Know the heart of an
test,
individual.
right,
Yeah.
test what the
Yeah.
closely held beliefs of
Right.
another individual? So it is on the DOD to
Mhm.
prove that they cannot accommodate that request.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd rather have you have heart failure than know your heart. You know, 'cause,
Ooh, there you go.
all right. So I guess we're going to take another break and come back and cover some constitutional issues on this.
That'll be fun.
All right. Let's do it, guys. All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to be covering the constitutional issues related to the restraining order and the lawsuit against the federal government that we're running here in Oklahoma.
A lot of fun.
Yes, yeah, it's very important. We have this situation where you see it in the restraining order and the lawsuit that the federal government is acting outside even their own laws. And the administrative laws allow the president to manage the conduct of federal employees. You read in there, conduct does not equal the status.
That's right.
So I thought that was a very interesting part of it. And what Mark wanted to cover today, we were talking about Article 4, Section 4, where it talks about that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. And what we must remember is that in republics, the most important entity in that system is the individual.
That's correct.
That's the most powerful entity in a republic is the individual, and everything must be pointed towards defending the rights and liberties down to the individual.
Well, if you go back
Yeah.
and you read, we start this conversation
Right.
with the two most impacting sentences about government that we've ever seen, and that
Mhm.
comes from Jefferson in the Declaration.
Okay.
And he talks about the equality of the individual,
Yeah.
which you translate into sovereignty.
Right.
If I'm equal to Mr. Steagall, to Mr. Lopez,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm your equal, I have the ability to set boundaries in my life and enforce those boundaries with you.
Right.
Jay frames it in a way that I love. It's a pursuit of justice, those things that are just
Right.
in our life. And we could go into conversation about what that means at length, but we start at that point where we talk about the sovereignty of the individual. Madison actually talks about that, and Adams both. And they talk about the sovereignty of the individual that is expressed through what they call the constitutional body.
Okay.
That moves into the extension of the state, which moves into the delegation of powers to the federal government
Mhm.
to act in behalf of the state, which is actually the people of the constitutional body.
So in relation to the restraining order and the lawsuit, where do you see this guaranteeing this Republican form of government in every state? How do you view that?
Governor Stitt did
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Governor Stitt did it.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the authority of the state over the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
As you cannot delegate, when we look at the 10th Amendment, you cannot delegate powers and lose authority over those powers.
Mm-hmm.
You retain them.
Right.
They're not relinquished, they're retained. Within the context of what we're talking about now, we have a federal government who is under the authority of the states. This
Right.
nonsense that we hear about, the
The federal
supremacy
clause.
clause,
Yeah.
it's nonsense. The supremacy clause talks about the laws that are pursuant
Mm-hmm.
to the Constitution. If they are not pursuant to the Constitution, they are outside of the law. And they are null and void. And we don't have to abide by them.
Right.
And Jay and I have this conversation all the time, and Jay has made some real poignant points to me about that, and I'd like you to talk about that, because when I read this,
Yeah.
and I read the fact that we are guaranteeing a representative republic form of government to each state, you cannot say that unless you first secure a Republican form of government within the state of
For your
Oklahoma.
state, yeah.
That's right.
That's where it starts, and it does not start with asking the judiciary for permission, because they are, under Article 6, bound by the Constitution. They cannot be bound by the Constitution if you give them the power to alter what
Manipulate,
it says.
change things, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when we take a look at the basics, and I love that you and I have had so many conversations on this, let's start with what the Constitution actually is. It's a compact between the states, and it in no way, shape, form, or fashion is an agreement between the states and the federal government.
Right.
The federal government is a result of the creation of the Constitution. It could not be a party
It didn't
to that
exist,
Constitution.
yeah.
So it's I find that very interesting that anyone in our governmental system would suggest that the federal government is superior to the states, or that federal law is superior to state law.
Right.
Our supremacy clause doesn't allude to that, and there's not any constitutional provisions to support that either. But because the Constitution is a compact between the states, and the fact that Article 7 and Article 5 tell us how the Constitution was A, ratified, and B, how it's amended,
Yep.
then it alludes to the fact that it is the states that are
They're
in
in control of the
control
whole thing,
of
yeah.
this compact
Right,
anyway.
yeah.
So
They're in control of altering it,
Yeah.
they are
not the
Not the federal
judiciary.
government.
They're
Yeah,
the
yeah,
only
yeah.
entities.
Right.
That's right.
The only entities that can actually alter the Constitution are the states themselves,
Right.
specifically the state legislature, which is the closest representative body of government to the people.
Right.
Now, as far as this mandate that comes down from the Secretary of Defense, I'm by the President through the Secretary of Defense, I'm going to go back to Article 1, Section 1,
Okay.
because we're talking about law.
Yep. Are we?
Well, you
Not
and
according
I,
to the president.
you and I are.
Well, he's talking about
But-
things that they inferred that Congress meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when
Maybe it was
Secretary-
said, yeah.
When Press Secretary Psaki says,
Uh-huh.
"Well, we do know that federal law supersedes state law as it
She has no
pertains to
understanding.
these federal mandates,"
Yeah.
then I would like you to read this right here, Ms. Psaki, that says, "All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress." There is no law that can come out of the White House.
Nope.
No.
There's not one. So this is nothing but a federal dictate coming from a dictator himself.
Yeah. Wannabe.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to be.
Yeah.
But, one of my favorites is James Madison, and I'm going to paraphrase one of his quotes, but he says multiple times that in the event that the federal government acts outside of its lane, they overreach, then the states are in duty bound to interpose on behalf of their constituents.
Yeah.
So it's not just a can we, but should we?
Yeah. To guarantee that republic form of government.
That's it. That's how we do
You have
that.
to do that.
Right.
That's written in the Constitution. You have to. There is a duty there that says you have to act.
Yeah.
To guarantee something requires action.
Right.
You can't guarantee. Oh my gosh, I lose my mind when I listen to these people talk about, well, the judiciary is the final arbiter. If you have to ask permission, you cannot guarantee.
Right.
If a state has to go ask permission of somebody to act, there is no guarantee that can be given.
Nope.
At all. And this makes me insane when I read these press releases from Greg Tree. I lose my mind when he says nullification is dangerous and we can't go down this road. You need to tell Madison that.
Yeah.
When you hear that kind of language, you know you are listening to an individual that doesn't understand the gravity of what he or she is charged with.
How can we maintain a republic if we do not nullify laws that come down that violate our form of government and our society and our Constitution and our rights? How can we not? How can we do that? It
Andrew,
doesn't make any sense.
You go back to the fact that these guys were aware of the fact that your republic could be threatened because they're saying these United States collectively will guarantee each state
Yeah.
a Republican form of government. They knew. They had the forethought to understand that their biggest threat was government itself.
Mm-hmm.
And Jay alluded to that.
Yeah.
They knew their threat. The biggest threat they have was centralized government. They knew
Yeah.
where it was going to come from. It was going to come from the feds.
And that's why it's a good thing to have regulated militias in each state to ensure that the federal government can't come just mow you down.
Well, let's go back to the things we have done this year that have armed the state of Oklahoma, at least with the momentum to fight back against this federal overreach. One, in the House, we stood up the States' Rights Committee.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to be appointed to the chairmanship of that committee.
Yeah.
And we've ran some great legislation through that committee. We've stopped some other bad legislation from making its way to the floor in that committee as well. But I've also been able to use that platform to write several resolutions that asserted our position as it pertains to the 10th Amendment powers of the state in an attempt to push back.
Yeah.
And I know Mark hates me using that word attempt, but we're pushing back against these.
Well, you are pushing back.
We are.
Yeah,
We are
you're
pushing
taking
back
action.
against-
You are pushing back. Yeah.
That's right. So let's talk about the role of the legislature right quick in this, and then we'll wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
But the question that we were trying to find an answer to amongst ourselves as Republicans this spring was does the state legislature have the power to declare what is constitutional and what is not constitutional?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna before I answer that question, I'm
Okay.
gonna read something that Thomas Jefferson wrote
Yeah.
to William Charles Jarvis on 28 September in 1820. Charles Jarvis, I know Mark loves
That's good
this.
stuff.
There was this back and forth on who the final arbiters of constitutional questions really was.
Yeah. Okay.
And Charles Jarvis had said something to the effect
Yeah.
that the Supreme Court is the final arbiters. These judges are the final arbiters in these types of questions because they've been charged with settling some debates, even according to the Constitution. Now remember, this is in 1820. We weren't writing a Constitution anymore. We had it. We were operating under it. Okay. Thomas Jefferson responds to his letter with this statement. With this other letter, here's a statement out of it. He says, "You seem to consider the judges as the ultimate arbiters of all constitutional questions, a very dangerous doctrine indeed, and one which would place us under the despotism of an oligarchy. Our judges are as honest as other men, and not more so. They have with others the same passions for party, for power, and the privileges of their core." So near the bottom of this letter, he goes on to say, that when the legislative or executive functionaries act unconstitutionally, they are responsible to the people in their elective capacity. The exemption of the judges from this is quite dangerous enough. We don't elect these judges to the Supreme Court, right? So who do they answer to? I know of no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power. We inform the people that their constitution has been violated. That's how we remedy the problem. And then it's up to the people who have the power themselves to act and to fix whatever issue we have, to take that action. It's their responsibility to do that. And I love having this part of the discussion because so many in our society today want to turn to government for the answer. Well, what if government is the problem? You can't apply enough of the problem to the problem to fix the problem.
There you go. There you go.
You have to apply a solution to the problem in order to fix it. So the people, even though they're not part of the elected governmental body themselves,
ultimately they are the power.
They are the power behind every bit of it.
Well, that being the case, what I would say, and this is where I stand, because this is what I believe. Everybody in this conversation and those that may be listening in, I think we have an issue with our thinking.
Okay.
We have wrong thinking.
Okay.
Free people don't ask permission. We do not ask permission to be free. We do not ask permission from any individual or any government entity to be free, sovereign individuals. And this concept that we have to go ask permission to do that is going to be our downfall. We're so close to that precipice right now that it's scary.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to have to get to the point where we talk to our elected officials. Fortunately, I have one of mine sitting in front of me right now, and we're on the same page.
Right.
We have to get to the point to where we understand our power as an individual.
Right.
Nobody takes that from us. We have to relinquish it to somebody else. And that needs to be communicated through these gentlemen here, to these gentlemen and to these ladies that are entrusted with being the extension of our power and acting on our behalf. And they need to understand we do not expect or want them to ask permission from a judiciary to do that.
Yep.
We want them to protect us.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in just a second and tell you about upcoming events that we're speaking at.
Yep.
And we hope you can join us.
Yep. See you on the other side.
We grassroots have a great opportunity to take this party back and be who we truly say we are. Let's unite as grassroots conservatives and let's get this done. If we fight, we will win.
We were not in violation of the governor's order.
That was from our story last night at 10. The executive order issued last month says businesses cannot serve food or alcohol past 11 p.m.
We have a newly revamped website and a very active email and social media campaign. We have implemented a phone bank program to call all of the county chairs to see what their needs are and how we can help them. Since elected, I have visited and spoken at 41 different county or Republican organizations, including all the way out in the Panhandle. Our SOP committee will be rolling out an operating guide for county chairs and precinct chairs very soon. We assembled an outreach committee to grow and diversify our base with younger voters of all walks of life. In response to overwhelming demand for action, we started an election integrity committee, which is chaired by Representative Sean Roberts. We started an education committee, chaired by Linda Murphy, to address the many education issues that we're facing today. We have a digital committee working on a unified digital structure and communications with not only party officials, but also the general public. We have a fully staffed headquarters, including a volunteer coordinator, and the GOP headquarters has become a buzz for legislators. We've had forums, and we get frequent visitors from the public. We partner with grassroots groups from all over the state, and we are coordinating our efforts to fight for liberty and we, the people. And our merchandise store is officially up and filled with patriotic gear, which serves to brand our party and raise money at the same time. We're having a real grassroots fundraiser coming up, so I need you to go to buy some tickets so you can come out and fellowship with other Patriots in Oklahoma City on December the 10th. Go to our website, go to our Facebook page, and find this link. And Patriots, if you truly want to get our republic back, it's going to take some sacrifice. And we must be willing to stand and fight for it. Because if we don't stand and fight for our freedoms today, we won't have any freedoms to fight for tomorrow. We've got to fight for our republic harder than the third monkey trying to get on the ark, and it's starting to rain, baby. So God bless you, and God bless the great state of Oklahoma.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you for joining us on this discussion about the restraining order and the lawsuit that our Attorney General has filed against the federal government and Joseph Robinette Biden, the former vice president. We have some events coming up for Jay that we want to make sure that he talks about. Something happening on Saturday, is that correct?
That is the case. So Saturday I will be in Yukon at Liberty Church.
Okay.
I'll be the guest speaker at the Canadian County's OK2A chapter meeting. That meeting will start at 9 o'clock. We encourage you to be there. Anybody within driving distance is more than welcome to come. I'll be giving one of the parts of my constitutional convoy project So about a 45-minute presentation there.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to be there.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff. If you liked what you heard today, you're going to love what you see on Saturday. If you're not able to make it on Saturday, we'll be giving another part of this presentation in Tulsa, and I'll make sure that we get the details put out there. But I can tell you where I'm going to be. I've got that right here. I'll be at the Embassy Church at 6:30 p.m. There in Tulsa, and I'll make sure that the address
And the date of that one, when was that one?
That's going to be Thursday night.
Okay.
And then I'll be down in Durant on Monday night, giving another part
Okay.
of this presentation as well.
Okay, good. If you're familiar with Yukon Liberty Church, is there on 66.
Yes.
Let's see, you got the roller skating rink at Ranchwood and all that.
That's right. It's between the what used to be the bowling alley
Yeah, yeah.
and
The roller
skating rink.
Yeah, Auto Effects is right next to Auto Effects.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's right across the street from your store.
I do have a store over there on Main Street.
Yeah,
That's
Cloverleaf Precision.
That's correct.
If you need high quality firearms and ammo, come to Jay. He can help you. So,
You guys need to show up Saturday. You need to plug into what Mr. Steagall is doing here, so you can talk to your representatives, your senators, in a more intelligent way, and have an impact on what they're doing on your behalf. I've seen part of the presentation that Jay has. It's an incredible conversation.
presentation.
Thank you, gentlemen. I
Yeah.
had brain cramp. Presentation that communicates ideas and truths, which is really important. We've gotten away from speaking truth. You're going to hear Jay speak a lot of truth that'll impact your life. So you need to come out Monday, Saturday, excuse me. I'm just having all kinds of, you grinning at me.
Yeah.
Andrew.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, and always remember, standing up to tyrants is obedience to God. Thank you for joining us.
Amen.
We grassroots have a great opportunity to take this party back and be who we truly say we are. Let's unite as grassroots conservatives and let's get this done. If we fight, we will win.
We were not in violation of the governor's order.
That was from our story last night at 10. The executive order issued last month says businesses cannot serve food or alcohol past 11 p.m.
We have a newly revamped website and a very active email and social media campaign. We have implemented a phone bank program to call all of the county chairs to see what their needs are and how we can help them. Since elected, I have visited and spoken at 41 different county or Republican organizations, including all the way out in the Panhandle. Our SOP committee will be rolling out an operating guide for county chairs and precinct chairs very soon. We assembled an outreach committee to grow and diversify our base with younger voters of all walks of life. In response to overwhelming demand for action, we started an election integrity committee, which is chaired by Representative Sean Roberts. We started an education committee, chaired by Linda Murphy, to address the many education issues that we're facing today. We have a digital committee working on a unified digital structure and communications with not only party officials, but also the general public. We have a fully staffed headquarters, including a volunteer coordinator, and the GOP headquarters has become a buzz for legislators. We've had forums, and we get frequent visitors from the public. We partner with grassroots groups from all over the state, and we are coordinating our efforts to fight for liberty and we, the people. And our merchandise store is officially up and filled with patriotic gear, which serves to brand our party and raise money at the same time. We're having a real grassroots fundraiser coming up, so I need you to go to buy some tickets so you can come out and fellowship with other Patriots in Oklahoma City on December the 10th. Go to our website, go to our Facebook page, and find this link. And Patriots, if you truly want to get our republic back, it's going to take some sacrifice. And we must be willing to stand and fight for it. Because if we don't stand and fight for our freedoms today, we won't have any freedoms to fight for tomorrow. We've got to fight for our republic harder than the third monkey trying to get on the ark, and it's starting to rain, baby. So God bless you, and God bless the great state of Oklahoma.